Vandaag een nieuwe vlog met Aaron Ross. Jullie wel bekend waarschijnlijk van het geweldige boek Predictable Revenue. Ik zal dan ook nu gelijk schakelen naar Engels, want Aaron is er natuurlijk bij. Hi Aaron.
Hey Chris.
Hi. Hey. Today I'm talking to Aaron Ross, the author of Predictable Revenue. Many people call his book the Sales Bible of Silicon Valley. I am really glad to talk to Aaron because his sales process forms the base for our success of our company. We're going to talk about his proven outbound sales system to grow your revenue and make it predictable. First of all, Aaron, I think every entrepreneur and company wants more revenue.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. But why is it so important that this revenue is predictable?
Well, the funny thing is, it's hard to remember. It's been a while, but the first company I started comes like a venture funded company. Mm-hmm. So I'd done some small businesses as a kid, a teenager in college, but when I was about late 20s, 30 years old, raised $5 million for an internet company, and that company went out of business. And between that and then going to Salesforce.com to learn sales, because that's why I went to Salesforce. After having a company go out of business, I as a CEO, I'm like, I need to know how to build a sales team and sales system in order to make a company successful, because without revenue or predictable revenue, it's kind of hard. Mm-hmm. But how can I do that? So I'm going to get a job at Salesforce.com and basically get paid to learn how to build a sales team. And in creating an outbound sales process and kind of building and managing teams, I just saw this culture of sales, of people in sales kind of scrambling from month to month or quarter to quarter. And what I wanted as a manager at that point was to not have to scramble and wonder, okay, this month or this quarter, am I going to make my number? Is my team going to make its number? That predictability. So I'm not sure why. I'm sure many other people have wanted that and have done it. Mm-hmm. But just to me, that was just like the basis of what I wanted to create there for myself. And then leaving Salesforce, help others do, is that predictable revenue. If you think about it, even as a person, if you don't have predictable income, and a lot of people don't, it's really hard. If you struggle to know when you're going to pay your bills, it's very hard to do anything or enjoy anything.
Yeah, the reason for me to read your book was we don't want a growth that require guessing, but or last deal hustling. So we want year after year growth.
Yeah, and sometimes you get that. I would say predictable revenue is an ever moving target, because as soon as you get a system working, and it could be in marketing, sales, or outbound prospecting, it might work for a few months or a few years, but at some point everything changes. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you can create a predictable system and never have to change it ever, but it's very different from having some sense of predictability with lead generation and sales and money versus having none or very little.
Okay, then the next logical question is, what's your secret? What are the most important things you need to do to turn your outbound sales process into a sales machine that creates ongoing predictable revenue?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So after the Predictable Revenue book, Jason Lemkin and I wrote a sequel called From Impossible to Inevitable.
Yeah.
Right. And actually the audiobook just came out. So they call it the Growth Bible of Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And it might be a non-obvious answer, but the most common reason people struggle with outbound prospecting. Now, this is not a sales book. It's not an outbound book. There's a lot of new information in it around that. But the most common people struggle not only with outbound prospecting and with just growing their company at all, is they haven't, let's say, nailed a niche, or in Europe, I think it's a niche. Yeah. And what that means is specifically companies, let's say outbound prospecting, are trying to target and sell to too many types of customers. So kind of everyone who could use you or should use you rather than the ones who would really need you the most. And the messaging that they're using isn't in the customer's language. It's like you're using your own product speak, your own marketing speak, that might sound fancy to you, but to the customers, it's just confusing. So that's the number one step, because if you're not targeting the right customers with some sort of, relevant message, they're either going to ignore you, or they're getting into a sales cycle, but they're not going to buy. Just they're wasting your time and theirs. So that's step one. Make sure that you've nailed a niche.
Yeah. I have lately I had a LinkedIn post about nail a niche. I think it's the most common mistake most companies are making in their outbound sales.
It is. That's the most common mistake. Why? So we say is if you're struggling to grow, usually it's because you're not ready to grow. And to get ready to grow, you have to kind of know, again, who's that type of customer who needs you the most. Because companies don't buy nice to have. Like, here's an example of how you know you're talking to someone who thinks you're nice to have. Yeah. It's, hey, that demo was really cool. And they never call you back. Yeah. That's one clue that you're, at least to that one customer, you're nice to have, or to that kind of segment. So it's not about having a product that's need to have versus nice to have. It's understanding to which kinds of customers, in what situations are you need to have, and in what other situations are you a nice to have, and how do you tell those two apart? So yeah. How do you target the need to haves? And then in those situations, what are they trying? What do they need? Like, what kinds of language? It's almost, can you read their minds? What are the thoughts they're thinking? So you can put those into your email, social, phone, whatever the channel of outreach, direct mail, and put that in there. So you're almost using their thoughts in your messaging to them.
Yeah. Okay. So you say nail a niche and a message that your customers understand.
It's in their language, yeah, not your language.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Go take a website from one of your friends or a company or someone that you know, and go to their webpage and see if you can tell what they do. Right? That's usually the experience. And when your customers come to your website, yeah, they're usually confused, because your website's written from your perspective and kind of what you know, because it's hard to rewrite a website in messaging or emails or whatever the medium is, to be really obvious and concise and clear to prospects. It's a simple idea, but hard to do.
Yeah, I know. What do you think are classic mistakes or misconceptions most companies or CEOs make?
Okay, so specifically, let's talk about outbound prospecting and
building
that's what I mean. So there's a couple I think that are really important. Outbound prospecting, one is that it takes this crazy perception that you can kind of build a team and get results within 3 months, or 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whether you're building your own team or doing outsourcing. So this time scale of how long it takes to build an outbound program and have it be effective and have it be able to kind of sustain itself is completely out of whack. It's really more like a year to a year and a half usually. Right? That's a much better time frame of expectation. And whether you're outsourcing or building your own team, and there's pros and cons to both. So that's number one. All right, we can go into that. And the other one that I think is really out there, it's kind of, again, if they do look at outsourcing as an option, and by the way, there's a lot of them. We do our business, part of what we do is outsourcing, so on. There's lots out there, and there's, whether it's sales or software, again, this is idea that outsourcing kind of feels like this quick, simple answer, but it is something that can be it's like you really have to know what you're getting into to be able to do it well, and to take some of the risk out of outsourcing, because the promise is very great. Hey, we'll just get you meetings, or we'll get you X, or we'll build your product. Again, it's not even about sales outsourcing. Any kind of outsourcing can be risky if you think it's, I'm just going to hire these people and they're going to fix it. I don't have to do anything. Like, you underestimate, even when you hire an outsourcing partner, how much effort it takes from you to put into that relationship to make sure that you're successful together, right? And they're not like a magic bullet or silver bullet that can come in and just save the day easily and cheaply. So overall, it's just to make predictable revenue work, it takes a lot more time and energy and investment, maybe not necessarily dollars, maybe, but especially time and energy and focus than people realize.
Okay. In your book, you also said the biggest impact on predictable revenue is made by creating an outbound sales development team that focus 100% on prospecting.
Yep.
You can do it by yourself, with a team, or outsource it. Why is this crucial?
Well, there's this really fundamental idea that I think in some segments is standard now, like Silicon Valley and the fastest growing companies in the world all do this idea, which is sales specialization.
Mm-hmm.
And what this means is that historically, we build teams, sales teams, and we would expect the sales people to do their own prospecting, to build a pipeline, and to close those customers, and perhaps even manage them, and perhaps even respond to website leads or marketing leads. And it's just too much. So the reality is, it's like if a sports team, if I was a coach of a soccer team or football team, and I told all my players, okay, everyone go out and attack, and everyone go out and defend. Yeah, like that doesn't make any sense. You've got attackers and defenders and midfield and goalie, and everyone has their place. Now, why don't we do that with sales teams? That's the right model. So sales specialization means you have prospectors who prospect, and that is their number one job. They don't close. And you've got closers, right? Account executives who close, who sign up new customers, and that's their number one job. And honestly, they might do a little bit of prospecting, but just to a handful, like 10 or 20 or 30 kind of key accounts. And you have a different team to manage your customers. And if you have marketing leads, you would have a separate team for them responding to them. So the point is focus. It's when salespeople are, like anyone is they're trying to do too many things. They don't do anything well. In this way, when you create more jobs in the sales world, people can do fewer things better. That's not step number one, because especially with outbound prospecting, if you're not focused on it, you're not going to be able to do it well. You need to be able to do it for like 90% of your day.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm getting attacked by, we have 9 kids. So that's one of them is discovering me.
Yeah. Okay. And to go further on the specialized the sales roles, I have a few questions about it, because I think some people would say you're crazy because they are hiring salespeople for years after year, and they are adding new revenue, so it works for them. Could you explain that?
Well, the thing is, you could have a great product and great salespeople and great sales process.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, the better your product is, and the more referrals you get, the more it can appear that just by hiring more salespeople, you're going to get more sales.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the image in the Impossible book, right? So if you see this is from the Predictable Revenue book, but just kind of updated. It's these different roles, 4 core roles. The thing is, and there are some companies where you do have salespeople doing everything because it's like very transactional, very kind of selling to consumers almost. But for any kind of B2B company, you need to follow some sort of model this way, because whatever your growth is, it would be much higher and better when you specialize. So the thing is, when you specialize, you get much better insights by function. Because when you have like a lead generation function, like outbound prospecting, marketing, you can measure them very clearly and see very easily what's working, what's not. When salespeople are doing everything, they're doing their own lead gen and closing and customer management, it's really hard if there's a problem to kind of figure out what exactly is working or not. So having different groups makes it very easy to measure different groups and different functions to really understand what's working and what's not. It's one thing. It makes it a lot easier to hire on the team and to train people.
Yeah, right? I totally agree.
Yeah, because they have basically the scope of their job is more focused. So it's easier to hire, train, ramp, and make your people successful.
Yeah.
It's easier then to build your team's culture because you have people at the junior levels, these kind of lead gen, whether it's outbound or inbound, doing well, and they get promoted. They go usually from sort of inbound lead response to outbound prospecting to like inside sales, small business, then to bigger deals and bigger deals, like a video game.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of the risk and costs out of building and growing your sales team. And finally, I mean, honestly, if you, again, just think about the sports team, like why, even if you were winning some games with, again, we have a football team and we're winning. We've got everyone doing everything. Everyone's attacking, defending, because we just have amazing players. But it's kind of like a crutch. You're not living up to potential as if every person on the team had their specialty and they were working in as a team. So it's missing an opportunity. But at some point you will struggle if you don't specialize. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, I really agree with you on this point. I think it's like you said, it's easier to ramp up and to be better in your job if you do it all the time. But a lot of people, some people say to me, we don't have the budget to specialize every role. What's your advice to them?
True. Well, I think the question is the idea's focus, like people doing fewer things better.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what happens is, so one situation is, let's say you've got 5 or 10 or 50 or 200 salespeople.
Yeah.
And you don't have, in the States, they typically are called SDR or BDR teams, like sales development rep,
yeah,
or business development rep, kind of these junior roles doing lead gen. So usually you kind of layer on a team, like you might create a team of 3 or 6 outbound prospectors, right? To kind of create that system. And then once that's working, you might look at sort of like a bigger restructuring later. So you kind of phase in different team functions, or you might create a customer success team and start taking over something. So you're kind of, you're phasing in the changes. Now, if you're small, if you're 3 salespeople and like, well, we don't have a big team. So the idea of specialization starts when you have 2 people. Usually when you have 2 salespeople, one would be junior, one would be senior. Right. So, and again, this book, if you've seen the Impossible book, it's actually, this is the 2nd edition. There's a section called Build Your First Sales Team. And so I'll go through the phases, because the idea is so phase 0 is really, the first phase is the CEO is prospecting, right? And selling, doing all of themselves. The first hire usually is a junior salesperson to take over the kind of the appointment setting and other lower level stuff the CEO shouldn't or wouldn't do, right? So that's step 1. The next step is 1 junior, 1 senior, right? And the next step after that is then 2 junior people, 2 senior people. And the last step would be, okay, you've got the CEO, you've got a small team, couple junior people doing lead gen, couple senior salespeople doing account, like signing new customers, maybe maintaining them. And it's working, and then you hire a leader kind of at the end when something's working. So again, I think the specialization starts when you're small. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of extra budget. It's really more changing habits. It's really more thinking about how to, because it also can take 6 months to create and refine a new sales job. It's like, how do you stay the course when you're going to make this change and convince people to do it and get their buy-in? It's, I guess, classic change management. It's more common that that's the bigger issue than just the budget. Although sometimes there is budget. You can start when you're smaller than you realize.
Okay, so you say to talk about levels. Level 1 is a market response rep or a lead generation. Level 2 is outbound sales development reps, and level 3 is an account executive.
I think it's thinking about building a team in smaller steps. Here's the problem. This is really for earlier stage entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs who are building a company and they haven't built a sales team yet. The mistake they make, there's 2 mistakes they make. One is they don't do the selling themselves, right? They want someone else to do the selling because they don't want to do it. Like maybe they're an engineer or product person. That's a big mistake. The CEO or founder or co-founder needs to be involved in selling so that you know how sales works, what they actually want to buy. And you have a sense of, when you do hire someone, a little bit more of a pattern recognition for not only the right person, but also when they start, how would you train them? So first, they need to do the sales themselves or be involved. And the second mistake is hiring a closer, an account executive, a senior person too fast, because the founder is like, I've been doing sales. I've gotten the first 5 or 10 or 20 customers in. I'm so tired of selling. Wow, if I could just get a senior salesperson to do this for me, we could be so much better. And then they end up either hiring the wrong person, because salespeople are good at selling themselves, and they can't close anything, or the founder's expectations are really off, right? Well, it only takes me a month to close a deal. Then you bring a salesperson in, it takes them 3 months because they don't have the founder's magic. So there's a lot of reasons why you fail when you hire a senior person first. Whereas if you hire a junior person first to take on your appointment setting, whether they're doing outbound or whether they're responding to leads, proposals, then, okay, they're freeing up your time to do bigger picture things, right? So it's a much less riskier, much more beneficial way to get started. So that, okay, now I have a junior person, I got my thing, we've got something working. And then when I either promote that junior person to sales or hire a salesperson, I have something working. It's a lot less risk to bring a more expensive senior person into the team in some way. So it's kind of taking more baby steps, this idea of slowing down to speed up. If you slow down to take more smaller steps and get your team in place over time, then it'll be easier to scale faster later.
Okay.
It's a big theme for, I guess, a big theme because most companies, really common mistake is they try to skip steps. They try to like jump levels ahead. Here's an example is you get a product, you get some customers, oh, we got product market fit. We've nailed our niche. Let's scale.
Yeah.
And you're trying to skip the step, which can be, honestly, it can be a year or 2 years to say, hey, what's the repeatable lead generation and revenue model? To learn that, maybe we're growing a little bit or maybe fast, but once it's like really understanding the lead gen and sales models and getting that in place before trying to grow. Because otherwise you just try to grow too fast and then you crash and burn and waste a ton of time and money.
Okay. Enough about the specializing the roles. The next step, my experience is that prospecting into accounts of marginal potential is a great waste of time.
Sure.
And we talked about nail a niche. So we have a dedicated prospecting team. The next step is to define our ideal customer profile. Could you explain something about why this is so important and how can we accomplish this?
Yeah. Well, I think I learned this again, primarily at salesforce.com, because Salesforce was really a tool that could be sold to almost anyone. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of tools out there where you could sell it to so many types of people, or maybe if you have lots of inbound leads coming in, there's all kinds of people coming to you. And the reality is most people aren't going to buy when you look at the percentages, right? So if you reach out to 100 companies, maybe 1 or 2, there's some very small number that would be in the place of being ready to buy. And when you are too optimistic or you're not disciplined in terms of really defining the ideal customer and what type of company, what type of situation, what type of people.
What are the core challenges?
Yeah, what are the challenges? How do you qualify it? How do you disqualify? On outbound prospecting, because there's so many companies out there. It's so easy to talk to and spend all your time talking to companies and people who are never going to be a fit. Or on the flip side, with inbound leads, if you have lots of inbound leads, you get all kinds of inbound leads, students, small companies, big companies. Yeah. How do you filter through them to find the right people who are actually worth passing over? And so I find it's rare. Most companies aren't specific enough in terms of the right company fit, situation, problems, and kind of how do you ask the right questions to quickly get to the point of, is this a fit or not? Because they're so busy trying to sell everything to everyone. But if you're trying to find out, hey, how do we figure out the right people? And if they're not the right people or companies, how do we figure that out so quickly that we can move on to the next, so we're not wasting our time? And there's many ways you can define ideal customers. There's the demographics, which could be like how big they are, where they're located. There could be kind of, they call it technographics, like the technologies they use internally. There's cultural, what the people are like, what the situations are like. Mm-hmm. There's so many filters, and there's no simple way. There's no way to copy. Like there's some things you can copy and paste. Like we say with outbound prospecting, you can copy and paste a lot of things like email templates and channels, like what works on LinkedIn or what works on email as a starting point. But you can't copy and paste your target market and that understanding and messaging. And that's something that for most companies is, it just takes more, again, sort of more insight and investment and interviews than you realize to really understand it. And it's an ongoing kind of never ending process.
Yeah, yeah. Our vision on this is that we try to define the most of the companies that are the most similar to our customers' top 10 of their customers, and develop a focused target list based on this criteria.
Yeah, I think anyone, if you've been in marketing and sales for a while, you realize like what a waste of time it is to try to not be targeted. I think when you're newer, like I was, I didn't really realize how rare it is to find the right customer, and sort of like how much diligence we need to put in to being specific to how to find the right ones and avoid the wrong ones.
Yeah. So the conclusion is companies have to stop stop trying to sell everything to everyone.
Yeah, it's almost like if you were going to drill for oil, do you run out and just start drilling, or do you spend a lot of time developing the right tools and technologies to kind of map everything underground so that when you do drill, you know the right spot to drill?
Yes, great example. You described multiple things are changed in outbound sales the last years.
Yep.
One of them is research rather than sell. Could you tell me something more about the difference in intention?
Yeah. Well, actually, I wouldn't say that necessarily that itself changed, because even at Salesforce.com, when I was there, I remember telling my team, step one, especially the outbound prospecting team, step one, you research. So don't go in selling at step one. First, research. And then once you realize there's a fit of some kind, then sell. Because again, especially so with the outbound prospecting teams, whether you call them BDRs or SDRs, they tend to be people who are more junior, have maybe no sales experience or a few years. They tend to want to be selling to everyone because they don't know yet. And they tend to they just see the sales techniques and they're just going and selling. I want to get that appointment. And it's just not as efficient. And doesn't feel as good to either party when you do that, versus if you step one is anything about researching. Who are the right companies? Who are the right people? And you might be emailing them or calling them. So who are the right people there? Or like, what's the situation? Or what do you want to do? It's more of an attitude. And I think that translates to how you have phone calls, this attitude of learning and curiosity and researching. Yeah. And you're not being too salesy at the beginning. And then once you realize, oh, you do have this problem that's a fit. Oh, you are relevant to what we do. Then let's talk about the next step, and kind of encouraging you and challenging you to think, how would you change your business in a way that would be beneficial to you, which also would include buying our stuff. Yeah. So I think it's one way to help people think of how do you get results without feeling salesy. Add that step one of a research attitude at the beginning of your process.
Okay, yes. So in the past there was an intention of always be closing, and now there is the intention is there a mutual fit? Is
there a fit? Yeah. Now, one of the things that's changed the last 5 years is the amount of content and the amount of email, the amount of messages. Yeah. So the noise out there is going up, and it's going to go up. And so it kind of doubles down, reinforces the idea of research as also a part of the job function of researching more people and messaging. It's still the same phase, like the same attitude, but there's like more effort that people put into researching to find the right, not only company, but more the right person, and to be able to reach out to that person in a way that they can connect with them, how to break out through the noise of and that's it's just be more noise over the future, because there's more channels, more messages, more email, more everything.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Aaron. My last question: where can we learn more about you, and where can people buy the first book, Predictable Revenue, but also your last book?
Yeah, this is the new one that just came out a few months ago. In fact, it just came out in Europe a few months ago, and it was the only language it's translated to right now is Polish, in Europe at least. It's out in China and some other, so the easiest place is fromimpossible.com for the book.
Yeah.
from impossible.com. And then for our business is predictablerevenue.com. And so for keynotes and conferences and different kinds of outbound training and services, that's where you would find out about me and us at predictablerevenue.com.
Okay. Thank you, and it was a pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.